Political and union heavyweights Bantu Holomisa and Zwelinzima Vavi say they've struck a potential peace deal with Cape Town's warring taxi groups, Kata and Kodeta. 81 people have been killed in taxi violence in the Western Cape since the start of the year, and thousands of commuters have been left stranded in the process. While government talks with the taxi groups have seemingly stalled, Holomisa and Vavi held their own mediation talks with taxi bosses, and now a peace accord has been written up for signing. Well, ENCA has seen the document, and Vavi's agreed to speak to us after the marathon talks. He joins us live right now. Mr. Vavi, thank you so much for joining us. It must have been a tough few days for you. How have you succeeded where others have failed?
There has to be a chemistry in any discussion. Look, Bantu Holomisa had intervened in an earlier dispute between the warring factions of taxi associations way back in 1992. They respect him very deeply, and they admire him. And I have come with the years of experience and admiration by the workers. These people have been workers before, all of them. They use their passions to get into the taxi industry. So if you do not have deep respect or you don't enjoy the deep respect, there's no chance that you can order them around into a meeting or force them to make compromises. I think that was the key to the compromise deal that we have now announced. We've sent it to the ministers of both police and transport, as well as the MEC, Michelle in the Western Cape. And if they are okay with it, we will be home and dry. And we hope that we'll have a nice ceremony somewhere at the end of this week to sign it.
Mr. Vavi, these taxi wars have been going on for so many years, route disputes, for as long as I can remember. Have you managed to reach some sort of long-term deal here as opposed to a short-term one?
We've done that. I think so. We have three categories of the agreement. We have an agreement on what we must do immediately. And the first and the most important thing that have to happen immediately is that the guns must go silent, and that there should be no killings, there should be no killing. And we have put together a task team to ensure that that happens. And part of the responsibility of the task team will be to ensure that it develop a policy for the taxi association such that they can hold each other accountable in this way, that every time there will be attacks on any of those taxi associations, the other association will have to be held accountable. We're proposing all manner of mechanisms, including hefty fines to be paid in case of banning of a taxi association, injuring of workers going to work or taxi drivers as workers, and or death. And we're putting on the shoulder of the taxi association to ensure that they take responsibility over death and injuries of their own operators, drivers, as well as the members of the public. And we think that if we do that consistently, we may find that what have been achieved in the football fraternity, for example, we used to have such hooliganism in the soccer fraternity in London, in particular Britain. And until the associations themselves were fined heavily for any kind of violence involving their supporters, they started to take responsibility and build their own internal mechanisms to ensure that no one is attacked in their name. And that's what we think will work in the long term. We have a short-term proposals that we have put together, have agreed, including solving the hotspot crisis of the line that have led to so much bloodbath between Belleville, Paarl, and Begweni. And we have three options that we are looking at. And if we get a maximum cooperation from the Ministry of Police, and in particular guaranteeing the security of citizens of Begweni, as well as the taxi operators, then we will be able to force a deal based on the three options that are on the table. We have a long-term solutions, and the long-term solutions have to lie on the fact that all taxi operations must operate within the ambit of the law. All must have the operating licenses, and government must avoid issuing licenses for different taxi associations operating in the same route, because that's the root of the problem. And secondly, unity have to be achieved. In the long run, we agree that it would be far more easy to negotiate deals and conflicts and competition between the taxi operators if all of them were to be in the same organization.
Mr. Vavi, this sounds like great news. What needs to happen before this deal can be ratified?
We need a commitment from the Ministry of Police that they will play their part in ensuring that peace is maintained, in particular at Mbekweni. Because in Mbekweni now we have a situation where Qatar have been driven out because it is being accused by their counterpart in Codeta that they are in the main responsible for the violence and the killings that have taken place. Of course, Qatar says exactly the same thing about Codeta, that it has used guns to drive them out of the operation. And so we need to work through that peace task team we have established. We need to work with the Minister of Police and with the Army to ensure that order is restored, so that we can force a mechanism where they learn to work together, initially in the line between Belleville and Paarl, and eventually inside Mbekweni itself.
All right, Mr. Vavi, and to your colleague, Mr. Holomisa, we are waiting with bated breath. Western Cape has been so hard hit by these taxi wars, and the fears in commuters has just been an extra burden along with this pandemic. We're holding thumbs. Let's hope it goes ahead. Thank you so much. Well, that was Saftu's General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi speaking to us about their own mediation talks with taxi owners.